Hello guys, today I want to talk with you about the nose and the breathing and all the implications of the breathing and the aspects of breathing that are important for you to know. And today I want to start with the allergic rhinitis. And for me it is I think it's very important because I see every day patients who have had a wrong or an incomplete treatment of their allergies. They come to me and say, I have hassasiyah, and they mean that they are sneezing and that they have a runny nose or that they have a blocked nose. But in fact they have never made a test. And allergy, always, if you say I have allergy, it always comes with a question, against what are you allergic? I can be allergic against work, for example. I can be allergic against traffic. I can be allergic against whatever, my boss. But that's not a real allergy. A real allergy is, for example, an allergy against cockroach or shrimps or pollen, grass pollen or tree pollen or certain food or certain insect bites. Those are allergies. So number one is, if you say I'm allergic, or if anybody tells you you are allergic, the question is, against what am I allergic? So that is the first thing that I need to discuss with you. So I'm talking about allergy, and I just explained to you that the question with allergy is always against what? Against what am I allergic? So now going back to the allergy in the nose. Once you have the blocked nose or the sneezing or whatever allergic reaction you have, and you suspect that you may be allergic against something, you need to go for an allergy test. There are allergy prick tests, which I like the most, and there are blood tests which are also available. These blood tests, I come to them later. They show you certain antibodies that are circulating in the blood, but the prick test is showing you actually if you have a real reaction, regardless of the antibody number or the whatever finding which is in the blood. So basically, you get little pricks in the skin. They are so tiny, they don't hurt. It's really painless little pricks in the skin, and they will be made through a drop with a certain allergen. So I put you first the drops of the allergen on the skin, then I prick inside, and then we wait for half an hour, and then we read the result. So to read the result, what do we expect? We expect a tiny little red hyphen on the skin, a little red inflamed area. And the bigger it is, the stronger is the allergic reaction. And it can be, there's a classification, but that doesn't matter anyway. So we can see you are reacting or you are not reacting. Yeah? So we put certain stuff on the skin, and then if you are reacting, whoop, you're allergic against that particular thing. And there are obviously food stuff and so on that's more interesting for probably the gastroenterologist if you have Crohn's disease or so, or there are foodstuff allergies that are probably on the skin, or on the skin you can have also allergies towards certain stuff that rubs in your skin. But for me in ENT, it is of most importance to know what allergen is hovering in the air, inhaled through the nose, and there has an effect in your nose. So we call that airborne or inhalative allergens. So those are the ones that we are testing here in our clinic. So in the first two video sequences, I told you that it's important to know against what you're allergic, and I told you in the second sequence the prick test, about the prick test to identify what you're allergic to, and that we usually test the airborne allergens. Allergen, yeah, not allergy, allergen. Allergen is a substance that causes the allergy. So that's the culprit. That's the the villain that attacks you. Yeah? So now I want to completely stop from here and start with another view on this, and that is actually, how do people become allergic? How can it be that I, for example, I'm lucky, I don't get allergic, I have no allergies, and others, they get thousands of allergies, yeah, or they become allergic. Where is the difference between the two persons, and why is that happening? And for that you need to know the three major pillars of allergy, which I now mention in this video. Pillar number one is it's hereditary. That means it's a genetic predisposition. You get it from your mom or from your dad or from both or from your ancestors. It is by birth that you are able to become allergic. So the ability to develop an allergy is given with your genes. So when you get that, you could become allergic. That doesn't mean you will become allergic, because it needs the other two pillars that I will mention now that are also important for you to become allergic. And the second pillar is, what is it? The second pillar is the allergen must be around. So let's say you would be, let's say, predisposed to become allergic, but you live in a spaceship where there is no allergen. Then you will not get allergies because there is no allergen. Yeah? So an allergen must be around. Or when you live on a boat or on the sea or so, or you live, or let's say you live in the desert, you cannot become allergic to things that are in the North Europe region or so. So it is regional. You will get those allergens attacking you that are in your area. Or maybe, if there is none in your area, if there is nothing hovering in the air, you will not get any allergy. So I told you there are three pillars of allergy. I spoke about the first pillar, which is the genetic predisposition, which you inherit. And the second pillar, that is the allergens that must be around. There must be some substance that could possibly be an allergen. Yeah? Allergen. And now the third pillar is the ability for the allergen to enter your system, because it has to be, somehow it has to pass your integrity, your skin, for example, or your mucosa inside the body. And that needs an inflammation or an injury. For example, if let's say, if a mosquito, or better a bee sits on the cake and somehow releases the bee toxin on the cake, and then you eat it, you will most likely not have any allergic reaction, because it needs to enter your system with a sting. Yeah? Or that's probably a bad example, but let's say if you inhale a substance, let's say pollen, but your nose is full of phlegm, and the phlegm does not let the pollen pass through into your mucosa, which is the lining, which is the blood circulated lining in your nose, then there will not be an allergic reaction. So the third pillar means you have to have a compromise of your system. Some doors must be open, and there the allergen passes in. You can compare your body with a fortress. Think of an old fortress in the medieval times with the knights, and they had these fortresses. So the wall, the thick wall, that is your skin or your mucosa. If nothing passes through, then you will not have any trouble. So the enemy knights that are attacking the fortress, those are the allergens, but they cannot pass through the wall, so they don't attack you. Then you have, let's say, a compromised wall, and the allergens can pass through. Then you have inside, you have the blood system that fights against this, against the enemy, and there will be probably a reaction. Yeah? And that is the topic of the next video. So I talk about allergy. I introduced you to the fact that anybody who has allergy must be allergic against something. I told you about the 3 pillars of allergy, and I told you about the test, the prick test. So now I want to explain to you the how it comes that people are allergic and other people are not. So let's say you fulfill the first pillar. That means you have the genetic predisposition. What does that mean? It means that you have antibodies, certain antibodies. Everybody has antibodies, but you have specific antibodies that are called IgE. You may have heard that IgE. Other doctors, they usually test the IgE level to test if you can be allergic or not. So IgE, if you have these IgE antibodies, you're very likely to have an allergic reaction. All of us have antibodies in the blood, but the IgE antibodies are specific for those who are allergic. The difference of their antibodies to the non-allergic people, I will talk about that later, but for the moment I must tell you there is IgE, which is responsible for the allergic reaction. Now, what does the IgE do? I will tell you in the next video. So I was talking about the IgE as the culprit, the reason why allergic people have an allergic reaction. And how does that work? So now think again of the example of the fortress that I told you before, and I told you that an allergen may pass through your walls of the fortress. In your body it is the skin, or the mucosa lining. Now we want to focus on the mucosa lining. The lining of our body outside the skin is a wonderful, really wonderful thing. Imagine this is like an armor of a knight, but it is much softer and still very strong, and keeps us, keeps all the environmental things away from us. You can screw a screw in wood or whatever. You can work hard with it, and still you're not getting any infection or any problems inside your body unless you have an injury. Now, the same accounts for the lining that we have inside the body. Inside, for example, inside the nose, or inside the mouth, or inside the esophagus, or the stomach, there is a lining. And this lining is called mucosa. A mucosa lining has no squamous cells like the armor that we have outside on the skin. In fact, it has a completely different way. It has a thick layer of mucus, and this mucus is really a protection, because any particle that wants to pass through the mucus will get stuck in it, and it will be swallowed with the mucus. For example, if you have a particle coming in your mouth and it gets stuck in the mucus and you swallow it down with saliva, then it will be burned from the acid in the stomach and it cannot attack you. This works super well unless your mucosa is inflamed, because when the mucosa is inflamed, it's open again. It has no mucus. And then what then happens, I tell you in the next video. Okay, so now let's think about the mucosa being not intact and the layer of mucus is missing. There are many reasons for that to happen in the nose, and this is topics for further interesting, very interesting talks. But now we just want to assume that the layer is gone. If it's gone, the fortress has a hole in the wall, and now the allergen can pass in. And now you're either an allergic person or a not allergic person, or without IgE or with IgE. So let's first talk about without IgE. What would happen if a foreign agent comes into our system? We will have lots of white blood cells, and we would have antibodies as well that would connect with the white blood cells, and they would just engulf the foreign body and would digest it and would put it in the lymph system, and then it would disappear and it would be excreted from the body. So basically we would just eliminate, we would just destroy the attacker and it's gone. The allergic person, however, the allergic person who has the IgE has a different reaction. The IgE is working like a police that makes a complaint or so, yeah, and makes a big alarm. And that alarm is a big inflammation. So IgE will eventually lead to an alarm reaction where our body releases a substance that is called histamine. You must have heard that word because every of my patients talks about histamine, or better, they talk about antihistamine. I talked before about allergies, how it develops, how certain people have allergies and others don't have, and how it's related to the antibody IgE, and how it's related to a substance that your body releases, which is called histamine. I told you before that an allergy prick test is done on the skin and that you get a red hyphen, an inflammation that shows your allergic reaction. And this red hyphen is actually only a result of the release of the histamine that I was mentioning already. So keep in mind, histamine is a substance that your body produces and your body releases it when there is a signal that says you need to build an inflammation. That can be sometimes good for your body, but sometimes not. And for an allergen, a simple particle that comes in your body, it would be better if it would be just digested and eliminated, and not if there's a big inflammatory reaction. And therefore those people who have this kind of reaction, they have a disadvantage. Now, a hyphen on the skin is not a big deal, although it can be itchy like a mosquito bite. But imagine you have the entire lining in your nose being swollen and red and irritated. Not only that you sneeze and produce a lot of phlegm, but also the nose, which has two nasal passages here, these passages can be too narrow and will not let enough air pass through. So guys, now I want to come to the conclusion, to the message that you need to take away. The allergic person produces a substance that is called histamine. This histamine makes all the trouble in your body from the allergy. However, if you would have taken an antihistamine, any of these tablets or any of these substances, and it would circulate in your blood, and now your allergen attacks you and passes in your body, and you have this allergic reaction, all that I explained before, then no histamine will be released and no inflammation will happen. And that is obviously a big benefit because the inflammation itself will let more allergens pass through, so you would stop the entire thing, the entire trouble before it even happened. For you to understand, you need to take an antihistamine before you are exposed to the allergen. And therefore, you need to know what the allergen is. Let me give you one last example. Imagine you find out that your allergic reaction is to cat dander or cat fur. So you know always when I'm around with cats, I need to sneeze, my nose gets blocked, I get itchy eyes, and I get even asthma. Yeah? When you know that, you would avoid cats. You would not really want to have the cat at home, or if you have your lovely cat at home, you would keep it in another room where you're not sleeping. You would not keep it in the bed with you. That would be smart, at least. I know people who keep even the cat in the bed although they are allergic, but that's a different story. Now, imagine you have this cat fur allergy and you have a best friend, and that best friend has a cat. Now you want to visit the friend. What do you do before you visit the friend? What would you do? You pop in an antihistamine, because if the antihistamine is circulating in your blood, the reaction will be much less or not at all, because you will not release histamine in your system. And that's the message. That's what you need to know. So you need to take the antihistamine before you have the reaction. Therefore, you need to know from what you get the reaction. Therefore, you need to make the test to know what you're allergic to, so that you can protect yourself when you are exposed. That's the message. Yeah, I hope you liked this video, guys, and I thank you obviously for watching also the video. But I also would like to encourage you, if you have now questions, just write me messages, and I can go deeper with further videos into this topic. There's so much to say.